I'm Barley Jonathan, and this is the 6 p.m. prime-time newscast on Équinoxe Television, live from my headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. In our top stories in this edition of the news, the United States Under Secretary of State in charge of African Affairs, Thibault Nash, says the people of the Northwest and the Southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon wants to have a say in the management of the affairs of those two parts of the country and not reconstruction. He said that the reconstruction plan of the President of the Republic, Paul Biya, cannot work in this present context. Also in this newscast, we will take you to the Donga-Mantum division, and we're going to show you the deplorable state of the road linking Du and Kambe. Stay with us. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us in this edition of the news on Equinoxe Television. The Under Secretary of State of the United States of America in charge of African Affairs has said that what the people, until when the government will understand this, the situation will continue worsening in the two English-speaking regions of the Republic of Cameroon. According to him, the President of the Republic's reconstruction plan, which is said to be intended to fast-track the return to peace and normalcy, cannot work in the present context. Take a listen.
Having to do with Cameroon has to be overlaid with the problem of the conflict that's going on. For example, now the Cameroonian government is talking about a new UN development program for the Northwest and the Southwest. Unfortunately, there's just no way to, number one, implement that. And the Cameroonian government seems to forget that the number one desire of the people of the Northwest and the Southwest is to have us succeed.
Thibault Nash, U.S. Under Secretary of State in charge of African Affairs, was speaking during a hearing that took place before the Foreign Affairs Committee of the United States the Committee of the United States House of Representatives, which is an arm of the chambers of the United States Congress. And still in the Northwest region of the Republic of Cameroon, we are now taking you to the Donga-Mantum division, and we're going to show you the bad state of the road linking Du and Kambe.
The military and this stretch of road are already fond of. This is the stretch of road heading to Ndu from Kambe in the Donga-Mantum division of the Northwest region. A 40-kilometer stretch of road which is very difficult for the road users.
Kambe to Magba.
Kambe to Magba from Ndu to Mbonso is very horrible.
It will be too bad. Even about 3 days, we don't go for Upper Mbot.
We have gone to Upper Mbot to carry stone to fill the road.
Try what I will go fix. Try our best. If you go the stones, then they will be okay because we use now one motor.
The journey from Kambe to Ndu, which used to be for about an hour at most, is now done for more than 4 hours. As a result of the poor state of the road, people who want to go to Bamenda from Kambe have to pass through 5,000 francs CFA for them to leave Kambe to Bamenda and vice versa. We left Kambe at about 3 a.m. but we are still on our way. For us to arrive where we are, it was hell. The shoe I bought for 40,000 is totally destroyed. Notwithstanding the difficulties faced by the road users, the drivers decried the several controls to them. In some cases, they asked us 15,000 francs CFA and 30,000 francs CFA.
So there is no difference between the Amber Boys and the military. They were there for it.
The only cry of the population of Nkambe is for the government to come to their rescue.
The problem of bad roads, notably in the northwest regional chief town, Bamenda, was among the issues that provoked what became known as the Coffin Revolution, spearheaded by Mancho BBC, who has been in detention. And since then, life has never been the same again in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. Insecurity has remained a growing problem in the two parts of the region, or the two parts of the country. In the upcoming report, Equinoxe takes a look at the problem of insecurity within the context of the Anglophone crisis.
Despite recent Thursday, July 30th, 2020, 2 explosions of improvised explosive devices were heard at Travelers and in Queen around PMI. Properties were destroyed and a carpenter killed by a stray bullet during a crossfire between armed separatists and the military at Travelers. The explosion in Queen in Bamenda 3 subdivision and other previous attacks is clear indication the peace and tranquility in Queen village had enjoyed is threatened.
Due to the crisis that's roaming out around Queen now, this quarter lives to be one of the most peaceful area here in Queen. And the most things we expect after this day, the quarter heads that have installed today, they have a lot of tax. Like the insecurities that are around us.
His Royal Majesty Fonazefo III of the Nkwen Fondom brandishes the flags of peace, community development and fight against the COVID-19 pandemic, while embarking on different tours across the village to install quarter heads in all the 58 quarters making up the Nkwen Fondom. The traditional ruler commissioned them to spread his COVID-19 awareness message.
We expect generally from them to also show a lot of concern and love for the people, and especially educate them on this COVID-19, especially at the time that we are facing all these challenges. We expect these people move to all the corners of the quarters, make sure the people are sensitized.
After installing Kong Joseph as the pioneer quarter head of the newborn Niberu quarter, Fonazefo III proceeded to Mbeso quarter. He called on them to be development oriented.
We also expect them to pull development projects, initiate ideas that can better the lives of my people in their respective quarters. We also expect them to be law-abiding citizens and to caution the young people and the entire population of the quarters to respect the norms of the land, and also to contribute their own ideas for the growth of the town and the growth of the Fondom.
Pledges have been directed to the fund and the communities by the quarter heads.
On behalf of the Mbeso community and on behalf of the Council of Elders in Mbeso, we are development oriented due to our system here in Mbeso, because Mbeso being the host of the forest of the old and the new palace. So we have a lot to give to the Nkwen people in terms of tradition, because we fail the Nkwen people through tradition, we have failed our people. If we fail Mbeso, in Northern Mbeso, we have failed Nkwen.
Development promises which to others will stand on love and humility.
We promise the people of our quarter that we be loyal to them more than to any other person. Our plan for the future is age and X. We have hygiene, healthcare, and good sanitation. That's what we want for this quarter in the next 5 years. A clean water project for us, for the whole quarter, will help us fight even the COVID-19.
Much action is expected from the quarter heads, and not just mere verbal promises.
From every indication, it's not an easy job for them, but we're expecting from them that they should work as a team, transparency, be developmental oriented, and so on. Not what we pray and we hope that the quarter heads will work as one, as a team, so that they can better the development of Mbeso quarter.
We thank God and His Royal Majesty Fonazefo III for giving us these leaders. They are the ones we expected to lead us. We will work in collaboration to realize community projects. Installation continues in Bejong, Ntefunki and Belem quarters. News on August 9th, 2020.
Muslim faithfuls in Tombel in the Kupe Monikova Division, southwest region of the Republic of Cameroon have prayed Allah to help put an end to the Anglophone crisis and the coronavirus pandemic creating havoc in the country, and they did so during the celebration of the Feast of the Ram. Today, Equinoxe has more.
Despite recent condemnation of persistent acts, early on the Tabaski feast day, Muslim faithful united at the Tomber Mosque in the Kupe Manyunguba division of the southwest region amid the COVID-19 pandemic to thank Allah for His grace upon their lives and to beg Him end the Anglophone crisis which has adversely affected them in all spheres.
Esclave d'Allah, population de Tombel, nous demandons la bénédiction d'Allah, tout ce fléau qui est en train de nuire notre pays.
We are praying for peace in this country because due to the crisis in Northwest and Southwest, we've been praying that Allah should help us let peace return as usual. So we thank Allah for everything and let Him bless our head of state, His Excellency Paul Biya, and the leaders.
Administrative authorities present, like the divisional officer for Tombel, Nyam Leonard, affirmed this Muslim feast of sacrifice is very significant.
Today these prayers were quite important because we need peace. This is the day of sacrifice. Sacrifice entails that we should be people of peace. We should be people who entrust everything in the hands of God so that peace can be the only thing that we need in this land.
Though the social distancing was not quite respected, majority of the Muslim faithful put on their face mask.
You've noticed that almost everybody in the mosque was wearing his mask, meaning that all of us are aware of the COVID-19 spread, and that is why each and everyone is taking all the measures necessary to make sure that we don't have the spread of this disease in Tombe subdivision.
Security remained heightened as the feast of sacrifice continued from the prayer ground to homes where meals and drinks were shared to the poor, neighbors and visitors. Meantime, the Muslim faithfuls have pledged to continue praying to Allah so that peace fully returns in Cameroon's two English-speaking regions and for the COVID-19 pandemic to be defeated.
And Muslim faithfuls in the Adamawa region and those in the littoral region of the country also prayed for a return to peace and normalcy, notably in the crisis-hit northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon. During prayers marking the Feast of the Ram, the Muslim faithfuls asked Allah to save humanity from COVID-19. For me, Armstrong Sander reports.
The socio-political atmosphere in Cameroon and the coronavirus pandemic was at the center of prayers marking the Feast of Tabaski in Gaoundéré in the Adamawa region of Cameroon.
But we have made our prayers just to ask the Almighty God to alleviate this disease within our society. And I want to salute the spirit of fighting of the population of Adamawa. The prayers of this of today is very important.
At the Mosque Senegalese in the Congo neighborhood of the city of Douala, the message and prayer topic was same. Before the Tabaski prayers proper, faithfuls had time to listen to the sermon of Ostaz Guy, Imam of the Mosque Senegalese who dwelt on the holy sacrifice.
On regarde, on dit, ah, est-ce que tu priais? On regarde. Ah oui, non, il priait beaucoup.
And then the prayers proper. Imam Ostaz Guys says the coronavirus whose impact was visible on the turnout at the prayer side was their main prayer topic.
We have done it in a good condition, and then we thank God. We have prayer for our country and for everybody. Now we know we are in some situation which is not allowed us to do some work, I mean some business. Coronavirus is doing bad for everywhere. If you remember, nothing is moving now. Everybody is crying. See, we have prayed in the mosque and to ask Allah to remove this sick. This is doing bad for everybody.
Irrespective of the challenging context, faithfuls had reasons to send out good wishes.
Thank you very much. Barkada Sallah. Barkada Sallah for all the Cameroonian man and woman.
If social distancing characterized prayers in Gaoundéré, it visibly wasn't a preoccupation to faithfuls at the Mosque Senegalese in Douala. However, in both areas, the wish for a return to normalcy in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon was unanimous.
And today is the 58th edition of the Day of the African Woman, and the theme of this edition is focused on the African woman and the COVID-19 pandemic challenges. And in the southwest region of the country, the women, however, say they have a bigger problem: the Anglophone crisis, and of course the coronavirus pandemic, and they are begging on authorities to find solutions, notably to the crisis that has been rocking the two Anglophone regions of the country for close to 4 years today.
So sing a song for women everywhere.
It is the 58th edition of the Day of an African Woman. And as the continent commemorates under the theme African Women and the challenges of COVID-19 this 31st day of July 2020, with many ticks saluting that the theme is in context, women in the southwest region use the opportunity to say that they are facing not only the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, but also that which came before the COVID-19, the war in the two Anglophone regions.
First of all, we have the crisis, which first of all was our first problem. Now we have COVID-19, which has also come like a big challenge. And women, most of our women are carrying out economic activities, which has hampered them. We have a lot of women who were selling in schools, and we had schools that were shut down.
If you think COVID is bad, you can also think of what we were going through before COVID came. That's why I say I applaud the women in general, but the women from the southwest and northwest region in particular, for their resilience.
Officiating the ceremony, Mrs. Eteki Stella, the interim Southwest Regional Delegate of Women Empowerment and the Family, pleaded and called on the women in the region not to relent.
The first thing is that we want them to accept the fact that COVID-19 is real. So now we want them to accept, because some women are still thinking that it's a myth, and we want to declare it that it's not a myth, it's real. Let them accept it, follow the measures that have been put in place, but make sure that they carry out other activities that can help them empower themselves.
The platform also provided a rare opportunity for these women to discuss the way to peace in their peace-absent Southwest region. It was more of a teaching and learning camp together in Boya. They are now expected to go into the society and teach others on how to adapt in this COVID-19 era on the one hand,
What to be COVID-19?
and the war in the Anglophone regions on the other.
I like the one we meet off the streets.
Before we wrap up the first part of this edition of the 6 p.m. news, we want to take a step backward to take a look at the significance of the Feast of the Ram being celebrated today by Muslim faithfuls across the National Triangle and beyond. Immaculate Fogwe has more.
Millions of Muslims around the world are commemorating the Feast of Sacrifice, or Eid al-Adha. According to the Quran, Prophet Ibrahim, known as Abraham in the Christian and Jewish traditions, was commanded by God in a vision during a sleep to sacrifice his son Ismail. While Abraham was about to sacrifice his son, a voice from heaven stopped him, asking him to rather use a ram for the sacrifice. During the feast, Muslims reenact Ibrahim's obedience by accepting to sacrifice his son without questioning God's decision. Since Prophet Muhammad's era, Muslims have marked the incident by sacrificing animals in order to show gratitude to Allah, who mercifully rewarded Ibrahim and Ismail with a ram from heaven to prove to humankind that God tempts his servants to get the best out of them and not to punish them.
Le choix des bêtes, à savoir les ruminants et herbivores.
A ram does not feed on flesh. They always work in a group, irrespective of the distance. So, the Feast of the Ram goes beyond just celebrating. The objective is to transcend the spirit of living together in harmony.
C'est partager cette logique.
The feast is celebrated on the 10th day of Dhul Hijjah, the last month of the lunar year, a day after the gathering of millions of pilgrims on Mount Arafat in Mecca. Eid Mubarak to all Muslims.
Talking Point is up next. Thanks for staying with us in Talking Points. We are receiving a gender activist, Quinta Fon. She works with the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Mr. Babylon.
Today is your day.
Yes, it is.
Happy African Women's Day.
Happy Happy Pan-African Women's Day to you too. And it's your birthday. Happy birthday.
Thank you. All right. You heard the women in the northwest or in the southwest region of the country who said that before the coronavirus came, there was a major problem, and the problem is still there, and they are begging for solutions. We're going to talk about that day. But first of all, your reaction to this point highlighted by the women in the southwest region from where you're coming.
Exactly. I thank you once again for the opportunity. I relate with those women. I've been working with those women. You saw Mrs. Eteki Stella. She is the interim delegate for MINPROF in the Southwest. I've been working with her for the past 3 months on a project to enhance the rights and the health of women during coronavirus pandemic. So I really do relate with her and all the women who participated in the program out there today in commemoration of the Pan-African Women's Day. Yes, it is true that our women were already faced with so many challenges because of the Anglophone crisis, and there was some amount of humanitarian assistance that was being given to them, or which were being given to them, but then they were hit again by the coronavirus and even worse humanitarian crisis. So I do relate totally with that.
All right, now let's talk about the day. What's the essence of this day? Pan-African Women's Day.
Pan-African Women's Day. We commemorate on the 31st of July annually. Member states of the African Union commemorate the Pan-African Women's Day in order to remember and to honor women who worked so hard for the political freedom of Africa. And this gives me an opportunity to point out here that women gathered first before the African heads of states, which were totally made up of men. So that took place in 1963, but women gathered first in 1962 on the 31st of July. 1962 in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, and one of the reasons why they gathered together was because they wanted to unite in order for there to be a political freedom in Africa, which has been achieved, I can say confidently. All right. So that's one of the significance of this day. But we should also note that this is a day that is set aside to bring together women's groups, stakeholders, to also continue to examine the aims and the objectives of the Pan-African Women Organization, which include the promotion of women's rights, gender equality, women's empowerment and other developmental projects for women.
And certainly other problems affecting the women and the girl child, notably I'm talking about gender-based violence, for example. I'm talking about things like female genital mutilation and all those violations of the rights of women.
Exactly. I must say here that one of the objectives of the PanAfrican Women Organization, which was established in 1962, 58 years ago, was in order to promote the human rights with the women's rights with the view of eliminating all forms of violence and discrimination. So you're right when you say that.
How much has been done in that line?
Like we said a few minutes ago, there was progress. But then they had the Anglophone crisis, and we had humanitarian support from civil societies as well as international organizations. We had well-wishers, stakeholders on ground who made efforts in order to curb this violence and also in order to promote the rights of women in the Anglophone regions. Unfortunately, COVID came again, and it has just worsened everything. Now, gender-based violence has exacerbated, and women are faced with even worse challenges than ever before.
And this year's edition of the Pan-African Women's Day is focusing on the challenges that women are facing in relation to the coronavirus.
Exactly.
Can you tell us a little more about that?
Yeah. Let me start by saying that with the coronavirus, especially when the first case was discovered in Cameroon the first week of March 2020, what happened was the government reacted by putting in place some measures, including lockdowns and shutdown of businesses, curfews, and all of that. The first really major challenge that our women have been faced with is the loss of the source of their livelihood. Women lost their jobs, young women lost their jobs. And when I talk about women, please permit me, women include girls. So anybody who identifies as female gender, I'm referring to including girls. So what I'm saying is that women, including girls, of course, who are renowned in entertainment sectors, they lost their jobs. Now, besides that,
those who are doing petty businesses.
Yeah, exactly. Remember, a place like Boya, where I come from, the population had increased as a result of internally displaced persons who had come from, various parts of the region as a result of the Anglophone crisis. And they came and they began to pick up bits and pieces to put themselves together so that they can have some form of economic resilience. Now, with the strict preventive measures that were put in place by the government, they lost a lot. So many young women and girls lost their jobs and lost their petty businesses and consumed the income that they had. They had acquired. They consumed their savings, and they were left with nothing, and they're looking up to support coming from other humanitarian actors now. So, as it stands, the financial insecurity and the financial economic loss is the number one big challenge that I can see that our women and girls are faced with. But you have other factors like the health, of course. If they don't have money, how can they go to the hospital? And even with the strict curfews and social distancing and all of that, these women cannot even access health care facilities and services like before. So the health aspect is also experiencing a major challenge for the women and the girls in our country.
Right,
so those are only two, but there are so many more. Talk about gender-based violence has increased in homes. Talk about inequalities, women not being included in decision making. Talk about discrimination. Look at the time when the government decided that they will bring help to the people. How many women were part of the preparations? They were only considered as beneficiaries, and that's something that we do not want women to be looked at like that. We want women to be a part of every process from the beginning to the end.
Women should be at the forefront. They should be in the middle. They should be behind. They should be everywhere.
They should be everywhere. Mainstream.
All right. So how relevant is this theme with regards to what you just said now, the impact of COVID-19 on the Cameroonian woman? How relevant is this theme in this context? How is it going to bring some kind of remedy?
Yeah, it is very important because it provides an opportunity for women and girls, for stakeholders, for humanitarian actors to sit together and begin to consider how women can be revived from all the challenges, how women can be helped, the solutions that can be provided to the women. And this is very serious and particular because, hey, for one, we are celebrating PanAfrican Women's Day, but not just that, but because it is proven that humanitarian crisis like that which COVID-19 poses to be, such crises have a disproportionate effect on women and girls and men. So the women are affected differently than men.
More affected?
Well, I don't want to put it more affected, but I want to say that they're affected differently.
Because even the men who are affected are their husbands.
Babila, exactly. So what we're saying is that, yes, they're their husbands, but these are women who society look upon to them as primary caregivers. The responsibilities women have are way more than that of men. Women are the ones who go to work. They are notably frontline workers. They come back home. They have to make sure that they provide food for their families. They have to take care of their kids. They have to ensure that their husband. So the society has ascribed these roles for women, and there are so many. And so we are saying that it is time we begin to look at how women are being affected by such crises differently than men, in order to find out how we can bring in solutions so that men and women can begin to enjoy the same services, the same opportunities, but also take the same amount of responsibilities. Do you like that?
An African man in quotes, listening to you now, say, but this woman, she wants me to wash plates, she wants me to clean the house, to take care of the baby and so on. Is that what you're telling him to do?
Actually, I'm not telling him to do that, but we do have frameworks that define the rights, the fundamental rights of men as well as of women. And so we are saying that this is different from the responsibilities that each society ascribes to women and men differently. Let me just say this. If you go to a country, for example, like the USA, you will realize that they are not experiencing what the African women are experiencing. Women in America, their husbands, more men who are husbands, they cook more for their wives. So it's a culture thing. It's a culture. You are looking at it as, because you belong, or the men will be looking at it because they are coming from this culture. But if you go to another region, another country, for example, it is quite different, and probably the society is expecting is ascribing different roles to the men and the women. So it's a geographical thing. It changes from one place to another, from one region to another. So for our African men, if I may say, what we are looking at, we're looking at the frameworks which define the rights of the of women, of men. A woman has equal opportunity to go to work, to make decisions about her sexual and reproductive health, you know, politically, to lead, to be a senator, to be a president. So all those things, we understand that, well, our culture did not accept it. You know, before, while we were a couple of decades back, it was different. But now, you know, changes are going on, and we are hoping that our society will change mentalities and practices, and will eradicate all harmful practices that violate the rights of the woman.
All right. What are some recommendations that you would love to give to the government to implement for things to change in that light?
Okay, thank you so much once again. Talking about recommendations, recommendations related to addressing these issues, the challenges women are facing in the context of the COVID-19. I want to begin with, if you look at the loss of jobs, women have lost jobs a lot, and they barely have any finance to be able to start up other businesses. It will be to me, I would like to recommend that the government should consider providing some financial assistance in order to some kind of seed fund or something to business women in businesses in petty trading, so that they can be able to restart business ventures. Also, they can consider, you know, subsidizing healthcare. They can also make healthcare affordable to, or free, I should say free even to their children, because they don't have money to take care of these children nowadays. And we don't want to say that the women should continue to depend on the men, because it will keep them more vulnerable if they become financially dependent on men. But if they get assistance so that they can be able to get back on their feet, then that I would like to make that recommendation.
Right, especially for the IDP women, the IDPs who have been displaced out of their homes in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, and who are now seeking refuge in other areas and struggling for survival. But I think we should make this precision. What you're saying now does not mean that the men should stop playing their role of providing for their homes, for their wives, for their children and so on.
But that's misleading if you say so, because we don't want it to be like, okay, the men are responsible. It's a responsibility of both parents. Now, when you make it that the men are responsible, the men will feel like, okay, they you know, the tendency is that they will abuse the power. They'll begin to, you know, cause violence against women and girls. It's kind of a complicated thing that requires a longer time for understanding.
And they won't pay the bills,
situation.
and they won't providing for the house. You don't have to say, okay, we don't want that. Okay. All right, thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. Thanks, Quinta, gender activist with the Center for Human Rights and Democracy in Africa. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here once again.
Do have a nice weekend in the company of our programs.